Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel. It's the middle of January and I wanted to do a weekly spread with me type of video where I took you guys along with me as I planned out a weekly spread in my bullet journal. Now if I'm going to be completely honest, I was going to film a Notion tour video this week because I used both my bullet journaling and Notion to plan out and organize my life, and I wanted to show you guys my updated Notion for 2023. However, I realized that would be the third video in a row when I'm just sitting at my desk and using a computer screen recording to show you guys all this stuff, and I'd rather just switch things up a little bit. So that'll be coming in a couple weeks, but for now I wanted to just do a really chill video where I set up a weekly spread in my bujo. Now if you haven't seen my January plan with me yet, that video was posted at the end of December, and I set up my January bullet journal with all of the calendars and cover pages and everything like that. So that video will be linked in the description box below if you want to go check it out. But in the meantime, this is one of the weekly spreads, and I will say I'm definitely trying something new and different in this video, so I'm really excited to see how it's going to turn out. Not to keep going with the self-promo, but I usually do my weekly spreads in a short form content. So although I will do like my cover page and my calendar and long form content, I usually use YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels whenever I set up my weekly spreads throughout the month. However, this week I want to do something a little different and go back to my long form video content. So I hope you guys like this type of video and let me know if you want to see more videos like this in the future. So I decided to ink out this picture in the middle, and it was definitely not something that came out of my own head. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Sophie, and I love taking inspiration from Pinterest. So this spread definitely had inspiration from Pinterest, and I will link the picture down below, and here it is on the screen, but I don't know the original artist, but I thought this was a gorgeous picture that I'd saved a couple weeks ago, and since I hadn't used it in my January setup already, I thought I might as well just pull it out for this particular weekly spread. Now before we get into the coloring process of everything, which was definitely the most difficult part, I will definitely say that, I do want to talk about the layout of this spread for just a second. I have made many videos on my channel before talking about different types of weekly spreads and my tips for weeklies, and if you've been in the bullet journaling community for a while, you know that usually people like to do boxes for the weekly spreads, you know, like 7 horizontal boxes or vertical boxes, or even just like space out around the page, but very rarely do we see a circular type, very open, I guess, weekly spread like this. And I will say I have not seen many people do it. I have seen a couple. If you look on Pinterest, you probably can find a few, or maybe on Instagram. As far as myself, I did do a spread like this where everything was in a circle over a year ago, I think, but it didn't turn out very well, and so I ended up not really liking it, but I decided to just try it again and go for it, mostly because I wanted to draw this artwork in a circle, but also because you might as well just try it again, see what happens. I mean, it's just in my bullet journal. This is a place to experiment, and if I don't like it, I'm only gonna have to use this spread for a week and then I'll move on to something different. I will say the spread looks very top heavy right now because of all of the headers for each of the days. I drew these black boxes where I'm going to write Monday through Sunday on top of, but because these are going to be the top of each weekly section, they do look a little off center, which is definitely annoying for me as a perfect symmetry type of gal. But whenever I draw in write in all the events and to-dos under each header, it'll make the spread seem a lot more centered because all of the words will come down below each header. So I know it doesn't look very even right now, but whenever I use this spread, it will definitely look a lot better. So going into the coloring portion of this video, it was definitely a challenge figuring out how to do everything. If you watched my January plan with me, you know that that was also a challenge, figuring out how to use red temples and dark red temples at that against a black background. But I ended up compromising and making this top roof of the temples very light colored and keeping a lot of sparkles and clouds and moons and everything in the background to kind of balance out the darkness, right? But in this particular picture, I was taking a lot more inspiration from the reference picture. The lanterns I drew were a lot different. They're more like floating lanterns from Tangle rather than the normal Japanese lanterns I was drawing. And also, whenever I get further into the coloring process, you'll see that the roof is not going to be tan anymore. It's going to be blue to reflect the color of the sky. And lastly, there is a tree in this particular drawing, which I hadn't put in my January theme so far. So it was definitely a different challenge figuring out how to balance out the colors and not making everything too dark and muddled while still giving the sparkly dark effect of this particular picture that I was trying to replicate. So I started with using an ombre effect, which I haven't used before in my January setup. Usually my backgrounds would just be black, but I decided to fade it down into a lighter blue down the bottom to kind of contrast the darker tree trunk and towers of the temple. I will say that because I am using water-based markers, they are going to be a little streaky, and I had to keep this in mind whenever I was doing this. If I was using, for example, alcohol-based markers, markers, these would definitely blend together a lot better, but those would also bleed through the pages of my original journal, so I had to stick with what I had. Personally though, I am very used to using streaky markers and they don't bother me very much. I like seeing the handmade effect of each drawing, so if you don't mind it either, I definitely recommend Tombow brush pens, Corello Super Tips, any water-based pen like that. They work beautifully, but I know that the streakiness can get on some people's nerves, and if that's you, I'm sorry if this video is ticking you off in just a little bit. So as you can see, this is about the part in the video where things started getting really dark and muddled. So I tried to add some depth by going in with darker colors, like a darker brown in the background of the temple to make those particular posts brown and not red, to kind of show that there was depth. I also added some black shadows into the trunk to show that there was also a 3D effect there. And, you know, in the stairs, below the temple, that kind of thing, to kind of add more contrast into the picture. Another thing is I added a little bit of darker parts to the moon to kind of show that 3D-ness. And now I'm pulling out my Archer and Olive acrylograph, which I have not used in a hot minute and really have not had good experience with, but I was definitely doing a lot of playing with it on the side with a scrap piece of paper to make sure every time it came out it was rather opaque. And I used this marker to kind of outline-ish parts of the temple and the tree. It's kind of like a mix between a glowing effect, a highlight effect, and just as a way to contrast it from the dark background. And maybe it looks a little sloppy and unprofessional, but I really feel like this effect did a lot to bring the temple and the tree out of the background and give the picture more life. While I was at it, I also used the white to create more stars and just create this overall really sparkly, glowy effect. And it's most definitely not perfect, I will say that. If you look up close, she's a little rough around the edges, but I do love how this picture turned out, and especially from far away, it gives the right effect, you know, of a dark temple, and there's like a pretty night sky and floating lanterns. Like, it's kind of cute, you know, not my best work, but it's kind of cute, and I'm proud of myself for branching out and trying something new, a little different. So if you bullet journal, I definitely recommend that you branch out of your comfort zone a little bit, because like I said, if you mess up, it's only for a week, you know, you won't have to look at it anymore. But even if you don't mess up and you do like what you had, then boom, you branched out, you tried something new and you actually liked it. So you never really know with this kind of thing. Because this artwork was very much the center and focal point of the entire weekly spread, I didn't really have much else to do. But if you know me, you know I'm gonna add some quick little washi tape in the corners just to add some more color around the edges of the spread, balance it out a little bit, although I don't think it was truly necessary. I could have done without. And with that, this weekly spread is pretty much done. I really hope you guys liked this really quick little video. Let me know if you like more casual vids like this, because it really was quick and easy to film, quick and easy to make. And yeah, so here was my weekly spread. Hope you got some good inspiration. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, because I post bullet journaling and productivity video every week. And with that, here is my January bullet journal setup on the screen right here. So go check it out, and I will see you over in that video. Toodles!